Today's episode is for the days you hate yourself, you hate who you've become, and you keep reminiscing on who you used to be. You keep going over and over what you did, how you did it, and you just can't forgive yourself for the past. Today I'm going to be talking all about self-forgiveness and how essential it is to let go of guilt and shame for your past mistakes, and trust me, I've been there. These are all of the realizations I wish I would have known when I kept ruminating and hating myself for past mistakes and things that I just didn't get right. But for everyone who's new, hello everyone, welcome. This is the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. I'm your podcast host, Natalie Etched, and this is where I share ways in which I'm getting my shit together so that you can get your shit together. If that sounds good to you, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and check me out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're on my channel or whatever you happen to be listening to me on, I know you know how essential forgiveness is, but a lot of the times people don't really talk about how to forgive yourself. Like, obviously, self-forgiveness is important, you know? It's easy to say, oh, well, you should forgive yourself, but it's a completely different story to actually get to that point where you've let your past go and you've realized that, you know, I could have done better in that way, but it is what it is. A lot of people feel lost because not many people really talk about their past mistakes because they're ashamed of them. This video is going to be filled with some tough love along with real advice that I wish I would have known when I just kept hating myself, to be honest. I'm gonna put it this way: if you keep ruminating on your past mistakes and find yourself resenting who you used to be, most of the time it's because you haven't had the strength to look at that past version of yourself. You just simply moved forward. So many of us get caught up in life where things will happen to us and we won't realize that they happened to us until way later. It's the same thing with how we impact other people and the mistakes in our lives as well. It's not pretty looking at the ways you fucked up. Like, we can all agree with that. But because of the fact that you just moved past it, you haven't really been able to figure out what the pattern is and why you still are ruminating on it to this day. The truth is, you will never fully forgive yourself until you are ready to forgive yourself. But feeling ready is not just a feeling. It doesn't just come over you one day. It is a conscious choice. A lot of the times we wait around to forgive ourselves because we want to feel ready to forgive ourselves, or we want to feel ready to forgive that person. You're never going to feel ready. I want you to think about someone who has wronged you in the past, and just hold on for a second because this is all going to make sense in a second. Someone who it was extremely difficult to forgive them. Maybe you haven't even forgiven them yet. Did this person ever make it clear to you that they were sorry? And if they said sorry, did their actions change? Did they do it again? The reason I'm asking you this is we all have someone in our life who didn't give us the closure we needed, and we just had to move past it and act like everything was fine. They chose to stab you in the back, they apologized, and then they did it again. One day you're going to wake up and realize that this person is never going to change. And in fact, you're putting yourself in a compromised position by believing them. Keeping that example in mind, think about the relationship you have with yourself. There are 3 main reasons you have not forgiven yourself for your past mistakes. Number 1, you have not changed your behaviors enough to make a clear distinction from who you were in your past to who you are now. You still relate to that past version of you because as much as it sucks, you never really looked at that part of you. You never gave yourself the time to analyze how messed up your actions were and why you feel so much remorse for them. And all your subconscious knows how to do with it is turn it into shame and guilt. And this is what you've been spiraling on instead of solving the actual issue. Number 2, you haven't even acknowledged your own self-betrayal. If you act out of character or out of your morals, naturally, you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel shameful. It actually would be more alarming if you didn't feel those emotions. So don't try to run away from the shame and the guilt. Obviously, it's there for a reason because actual bad people don't feel bad. You know, they don't think like that. They're not like, oh my God, I hurt this person's feeling. They don't think like that. And that doesn't mean what you did is justified in any way. It's just to put it in perspective for you that, you know, you did not acknowledge your own self-betrayal, which is why you're feeling these emotions. And number 3, you haven't made amends with the other people in your life that you've hurt. You might have already acknowledged the ways it's hurt you. You might have already gone through it with yourself, but what you're really guilty about is the fact that you haven't actually given that person an apology apology. You might be scared that that person isn't going to respond or isn't going to react well to you reaching out to them and actually making amends. And what you got to realize with that is you can't have an expectation of them and how they're going to react if you're the one that wronged them. You just can't. You wronged them. That is just like that situation I was telling you guys earlier of like this person just stabbed you in the back and then they come up to you and say sorry and then you say I don't forgive you and then they just smack you up on the head. Like, you get what I mean? Like, you can't have an expectation there for how this person is going to react. I'm just gonna say it. An apology without changed behavior is manipulation. You are manipulating yourself into believing you're a changed version of yourself while still holding on to the behaviors and patterns that made you feel that guilt and shame in the first place. Now that we have established the blocks on why you can't forgive yourself, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some perspective shifts that have allowed me to shift and release this guilt and shame. Number one, you do not have to accept your past, but life's going to move on anyway. Now, the reason I put it this way is so many of us feel this immense pressure when starting our healing journey to forgive ourselves and just move on. Like, why are we feeling this emotion? We either dwell in this low vibrational energy of self-loathing and just hating ourselves for what we did, or we run away from the emotion altogether because we're just so ashamed of ourselves that we can't even face what we really did. When you realize that you don't have to do anything, that pressure gets released because at the end of the day, you don't have to forgive your past. You don't have to let it go. You don't have to move forward. Life is moving on with or without you. Whether you hate yourself, whether you love yourself, whether you hate your past, whether you forgive your past, whether you say sorry or whether you don't say sorry, life is going to move forward and you are going to find a way to cope either way. You are not powerless. You don't have to heal. You don't have to do anything. You always have a choice. So choose right or don't. I don't really care. But no, seriously, you guys, like, I feel like this really helps because oftentimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to just move forward. But at the end of the day, you're going to feel the emotion anyways, which brings me to number two. It is what it is. Now, what do you make of it? Like, it is what it is. It already happened. What are you going to make of it? Are you going to take the lesson out of what you did and learn to not do that again? Or are you going to repeat yourself and repeat the patterns and not learn from your mistakes? I think sometimes we go into this victim mindset where we feel helpless, but that literally just comes from a mistrust within yourself. You don't trust yourself to make the right decisions. Why? Well, because I always mess things up and I make people feel XYZ. You're not in control of how people feel. You are only in control of your actions and you are only responsible for your actions. You need to be accountable for your actions and make sure that you are not stepping on others. But if other people are around you who are guilting you into feeling a certain way and guilting you into constantly apologizing for every little small detail of your life, are you actually responsible for that? Or have you been brainwashed into believing that that is your responsibility? At the end of the day, the thing that you are shaming yourself over can either make you a better person or a worse person. Everyone's heard that hurt people, and the things that I've had to realize when I've made mistakes is that those mistakes I've made are often ways in which I have neglected myself in some weird way, shape, or form. Like, hurting this person was meant to reflect back to me ways in which I was also hurting myself. Does that justify what I did? Absolutely not. But did that action come from a place of a disconnection from myself and a part of me that was also hurting? Absolutely. You can't hold things over your head that you weren't aware of. You weren't aware of doing that to that person. If your intention was not to hurt that person, all you can do is apologize and move forward with your new level of awareness. And even if you did intend to hurt that person, you need to dive deeper. What is beneath this desire to hurt someone? What parts of you were feeling hurt when you desperately wanted someone to be down on your level, to be hurting with you? The desire to make other people hurt the way that we hurt is just our misplaced desire for empathy within ourselves. You don't have enough empathy that you give yourself, therefore you are looking for empathy within other people. You want people to feel how you feel. There are times I've been so unaware of the ways I've neglected and been hurt myself that I had to go and ruin a connection or a friendship because I was so disconnected from myself. And that experience was really meant to heal me. It was really meant to reflect back to me a side of myself that I did not like seeing and that I wasn't even aware of yet. I have this kind of spiritual belief that you're never going to be aware of a certain thing that you need to heal until you have the strength or courage in order to fix it. Which is why we were made to fail. We were made to make mistakes. We were meant to fall flat on our face. But those mistakes do not define who you are. You define who you are by taking the lesson out of every negative experience you had and turning it into something where you're a better person. You define who you are by getting real with yourself and going, how could I have made this situation better? I cannot change what I've done. I can only move forward with the new level of awareness I have. That's it. Which is why it is what it is. But I choose what I make of it. You always have a choice. Great, Natalie. So how do I stop feeling this way? Which brings me into number 3. If you're ashamed of yourself, create a new self. You know how earlier I was saying how you manipulated yourself into thinking that you've changed? Yeah, you can't just manipulate yourself into thinking you're a completely different person. You have to put actions behind that. Again, an apology without changed behavior is manipulation. We're not manipulating ourselves this 2024. We are going to stand on what we've done and look at our actions in order to become better people. I don't believe in just simply not acknowledging the past versions of yourself because you're in a different position now in life. That might work for a very short period of time, but those realizations will always catch up to you. You will always feel the shame if you're not like a psychopath. I don't know. If you've done something that you are not proud of, you must hold yourself accountable. It's that simple. Don't make the mistake again. Look at yourself in the mirror and look at where it's gotten you. I want to talk about the difference between guilt and shame for a second because they are very distinct. Guilt is I've done something bad. Shame is I am bad. I am damaged goods. So feeling shame is a reflection that you are defining yourself based on one mistake you have made. You're allowing the mistake you made to define who you are, to become a part of your self-concept, because you are saying, I am damaged. Despite the copious amounts of good things you've done in life, despite the many people you have impacted and made happy, and the things you've accomplished in life, despite all of those things, no, I'm just damaged. I'm just horrible. I just hate myself. Literally, what? What are you saying right now? Think about how you talk to yourself. When you're in a shame spiral, literally talk to yourself in your own head. And I know that sounds like some crazy person shit, but girl, you're on the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. Like, I don't know what you expected. When you become aware when you're in a shame spiral and going, oh my God, I hate myself, XYZ, blah, 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 I'm just a bad person. Like, you need to stop yourself when you're going through these things and start overriding that with things you are currently doing in order to improve the situation. When I put that into perspective for you, it sounds very silly, right? It sounds very silly to make one mistake and then allow it to define the entirety of who you are. The real reason we hold on to this guilt and shame is we think it's doing something for us, right? We did something bad, therefore we should feel bad. We think that if we just hold on to these negative emotions, it'll somehow make up for the fact that we've done bad. If you really want to let this shame go, you need to make an entire new version of yourself that isn't based on the self-concept of I hate myself or I'm ashamed of myself. I am damaged. Like, you can never move forward from what you did in your past if you have that self-concept of yourself, because you will constantly repeat those same cycles from your past because it's a part of your self-concept. Let go. It doesn't define you anymore. So here's how to create a new version of yourself and let go of shame. Number 1, self-reflection. Okay, identify the shitty behavior that you did in order to create this reaction from people and make people hate you and make you hate yourself. Like, acknowledge that behavior. You can't get anywhere if you just think like, well, I just make everyone mad. Okay, that's not the point, bestie. Like, what's the action that you did that made people mad? And also, we all make people mad sometimes. So, at the end of the day, like, you're either gonna get better or you're gonna get worse. you always have a choice. But what are the main emotions behind that? Self-reflection is very key. Number 2, your actions. What are some actions or preventative measures so that this doesn't happen again? What are some things you can do to build trust? Whether that is walking away from a conversation when you get really, really angry, whether that is not overbooking yourself, what is an action that you can take in order to have the mistake not happen? This one is very straightforward. Also, doing certain actions to help you self-regulate is super important because these things help build trust with yourself. If you're feeling a lot of shame and you feel like I don't really know what to do, oftentimes it's because you don't really trust yourself. Building a level of trust with yourself will allow you to build trust with others and making sure like, okay, let me apologize to this person. Let me take accountability. Which brings me into number 3, taking accountability. I think it's an essential part to this video. Apologize to yourself, apologize to who you hurt. Like, you need to have these conversations in your life in order to maintain healthy relationships, or nobody's gonna wanna be around you. Okay, bestie? Number 4, practicing a neutral self-concept. Stop viewing yourself as either all good or all bad. You're a human. You know, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fuck up. Accept the mistakes, move past them. And number 5, commit to yourself. Start committing to yourself in small ways, whether that is journaling, doing shadow work, making sure you go to your appointments on time, maybe going to the gym. Doing things like this allow you to stop betraying your own trust. Because as I was saying before, you can't forgive yourself unless you actually acknowledge the behaviors you're doing that are self-destructive. When you feel disconnected from yourself, it's because you're making a choice to continue to betray your own trust. You also have to make amends with yourself in order to make that trust good again. Like, you're not going to automatically trust yourself when you keep going back to that one ex or when you keep making questionable decisions. Like, you're not going to feel good about yourself. These small actions you take in order to completely dissociate from the past version of you will help you move forward, because even though they're not directly related to self-forgiveness, they allow you to create a distinct split from who you used to be and who you are now. The sooner that you realize that and truly accept that as the reality of life, the easier it'll be to bring yourself back to the present moment and analyze why a situation bothered you so much. Utilize the power of the present moment to bring yourself back to reality and allow yourself to forgive. You can only forgive yourself when you're in the present moment and see the whole of who you are. I know that sounds very woo-woo, I don't know, you know what I mean? But like, it genuinely is true. You have to bring yourself back to the present moment in some way, shape, or form, because if you don't, you are constantly going to be repeating cycles from the past. Because at the end of the day, there's so many patterns in our life that repeat itself until we are aware of them. And you can only be aware of something when you're in the present moment. You can only be aware of how a behavior that you have is really impacting you. And getting back to the present moment is how you can realize how some of these traits were like passed down from generational trauma. I've definitely had some moments in my life where I was reliving some generational trauma, and I had to recognize that this is a trait I was passed down. Do I want to repeat the cycle? And like, no, I don't want to repeat the cycle. I want to live a happy life. I want to let the past go, because at the end of the day, we only have the present moment, okay? You only have the choices you make today. If yesterday wasn't your best day, if you've made mistakes, tomorrow is a new day. And also, you're not always guaranteed tomorrow. Your emotions are valid, and the way that you interpret your past actions can help prepare you for a new version of yourself. But only you have the power to make the choice to let things go. Only you have the power to make amends with your past. Only you have the power to forgive yourself. Every single day you live is a fresh start. So choose better. With that being said, besties, thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. This episode was deep. I know I gave you guys some tough love, but it's honestly tough love that I needed too, because I was ruminating on some past actions of mine. Anyways, besties, I love you guys. Be sure to check out all my social medias, do all of the things, like this video because it really, really helps push me out into the algorithm. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.